Okay, welcome to Filmocracy Fest and to our Q&A with Touch. We're happy to have Alexandra Chinovska here to join us today to share some insights on making the film. And thank you, Alexandra, as well for giving us the opportunity to present your terrific film with our audiences today. So let us jump right in. Touch was produced, directed, written, and stars Alexandra Chinovska. And Alexandra is a New York-based writer, director, and producer. Prior to Touch, her first narrative feature, she wrote, directed, produced short film, including Let It Ring, which she co-wrote and co-directed with her artistic partner, Jean-Luc Omiers, and which premiered at the Montreal Film World Festival in 2013. Together, they also made Naked Souls, a mystery drama shot in Paris, sponsored by Unifrance, which won the Best Short Film on Polish Web in 2012. Firstly, Alexandra, tell us when you had the inspiration of making the film.
When I had the inspiration of making the film?
Yeah.
I was inspired, let's see, the storyline, about 10 years ago, I wanted to make something around blind masseurs in China. The first time I had experienced a blind, sort of the event which led to the inspiration was maybe 20 years ago. So, but then I knew I wanted to make a story around it about 10, 12 years ago, and I tried. And it wasn't organic. I was forcing something, so I let that go. And then I visited China again with my family 6 years ago and had an experience with a masseur who wasn't blind, but it was a strange encounter, called into question all sorts of ideas around Chinese masculinity in contemporary China. And then I went back to the idea of the blind masseur and explored that, and sort of it came very organically this time around. So 6 or 5 years ago is when I was inspired then to finally write the screenplay, which flowed.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, quite a journey coming up until the premiere now. So
yes,
as the writer, director, producer, and star, which is quite an impressive credit, I may say, can you tell us a bit about the experience in these roles, maybe kind of speaking to directing yourself or writing for yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's actually all where it started, because I started as an actor, and I was getting scripts which I thought were horrible. I mean, I'm sure I know A-list actors get fantastic scripts, you know. So I wasn't there yet, and I was getting really, really bad scripts. And so I thought, well, I'll just write something for myself, you know. And then after I wrote it, you know, once you write a script, you hand it over to a director, and a director can do anything they want with it. They can also request drastic scene changes and things like this, and they can just shoot it completely differently than how you imagined and give it a different intention. So, and I also believe I write very visually. I've been told I write very visually. I know I write very visually. So I didn't really want to hand it over. So I sort of, so I wasn't really, it wasn't that I always wanted to be a writer, I always wanted to be a director. It's just that I kind of fell into those positions out of necessity, it felt like in the end. So I wanted to direct what I had written. And as far as directing myself as an actor, since I've done it 4 times before in short films, it's a matter, I think, of finding your methodology as a director anyway. But if in this particular case, it is something which, you know, you have to find your way to do it, your rhythm. And, you know, I know exactly my pacing in this combination, as far as how many pages I can shoot a day, how many setups I can do. I know when to, depending also on the relationship with the cinematographer, but, you know, how often to look at the playback. And that doubles the time often, because, you know, as a director, if you're just the director, then you can, and there were scenes where I wasn't acting, so it went at a much faster clip because I didn't have to look at playback. I was there just watching as it happened. But not always do I have to, you know, it's a balance of trusting the cinematographer, knowing which scenes are super vital, which scenes or just feeling them out when I'm in them, how they went. I can sometimes just feel them how they go, so I don't have to look at playback. This kind of thing. It's a balance of all these factors, and knowing and having done it before many, many times. It's I sort of developed a methodology around it. And then I think, you know, when you're making an independent film, you know, not with a blown out studio budget, then and you're a writer, you're almost always thinking as a producer if you want it to get made. You know, the first script which I wrote, which was an indie script, had like, you know, 500 characters and 50 locations, and to make it work, the budget would have to be like 10-15 million dollars, but it didn't. And that was 15 years ago. So now let's say 25-30 million dollars, and that kind of script didn't warrant that kind of budget. You know, it wasn't appropriate for that story. You know, if you're making a Marvel series, yes, it needs a lot of money. But if you're making an intimate story about a family, you shouldn't have to have a $30 million budget. So it wasn't appropriate. You know, every film, every story has its sweet spot, let's say. So it wasn't appropriate. So you have to also know when you're writing, you have to have a producer hat on as well. Absolutely. To know, you know, like what kind of budget you're writing for, and keep everything scaled down. So they're all actually, especially when you're making indie films that are not high budget. This wasn't certainly low budget, but it wasn't high budget. Then you have to take everything into account. So yeah. they all naturally are integrated. There's not really a separation.
Absolutely.
In all those roles. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of talking about scale, budgets, and everything like that, going from short films to this feature film as well. What were some of the challenges in kind of jumping from short to feature? Obviously, speaking budget, producing is kind of a different ball game. So is there any specific challenges you can kind of speak to that you had during the production or afterwards even?
No, it's not. It's actually not much. It's actually surprisingly not much different. It's sort of like, you know, it's sort of like sprinting and then running a marathon. It's sort of the equivalent, you know, analogy. It's still as stressful. It's still as, you know, it takes the same amount of preparation. You do the shots the same way. The thing which was the most different was that there was a lot more money involved, and so there are more stakeholders. So that's, I think, the biggest difference. When I'm making a short film, I mean, this was very much my own. As I had all those titles, it's very much, I'd say, a one woman band at this time as well. But I did still have some people that gave money and put money into it. I did still have a massive crew. So there were more stakeholders in this sense. And when you have a small short film, you're completely 100% your own agent in a way. So, I mean, it's still a collaborative process, but because in those roles, I was also the writer, director, and the actor, and often the one putting up the money, then there aren't going to be that many forces sort of trying to aggressively shape. I mean, they will shape in an organic and constructive way. And then I think when you get into a feature film, there are forces which try to shape it in an inorganic and destructive way. I think that's kind of the difference. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about artistic collaboration, because that obviously informs a piece. But when you get to a feature film, there are other factors. They're political, and, you know, and ego, and this kind of people who, you know, put a little money in, and this kind of thing that kind of make the waters a little more murky and make it much harder to stick to an original vision and stick to your original energy and this kind of, and see it through.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
yeah, and then there's the difference of obviously making this film in China, which is a completely different atmosphere for filmmaking. Yeah,
can you tell us a little bit more about kind of your experience in filming in China?
Where to begin? I could write a book about that. The biggest, I mean, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin. It's I mean, so many things, from things that you wouldn't even expect are, you know, if here they're black and white, over there they're white and black, like completely opposite from what you'd expect. There's when you write the script and shoot the film, there's also the censorship issue. So there's that. There's when you work with actors, there's a huge because of the culture. There's you know, it's very difficult to shoot intimate scenes extremely difficult to shoot intimate scenes.
Mm.
There's not this kind of this what should we say? I mean, they're much more guarded as it's a cultural thing, you know. So there's this, and then on a technical side, which I actually didn't anticipate. This I anticipated the least. That technically shooting there was extremely different. So, for example, wanting to use handheld was absolutely not. Hold on, I have to put my headphones on. Sorry about this.
No worries.
Can you hear the background noise or no?
That's okay. No, yeah.
Can you hear it or no?
Yeah.
Right, maybe I can hear it.
Yeah.
This is better. Now I can only hear you. So, now there were, from a technical standpoint, there were things like when you prepare a film in the West, it's like filmmaking 101 that you make a shot list, which is like the blueprint, right, for making a film. How you, which angles, what lens, etc. And they actually don't make shot lists in China.
Okay.
It's an exercise which they did in school. I mean, I'm sure there are the few that do it. Probably, I mean, I don't even want to guess. I don't even want to start categorizing who, but my DP literally said the last time he did this was 15 years ago in school.
Wow.
Yeah, and he didn't do a shot list. I did the shot list because he actually kind of refused to do the shot list with me. So I did the shot list, which is fine. So there are things like this, which I came up on, or I was talking about before, was handheld. You know, the whole film is shot in handheld, and they were saying that this is actually only films that are amateurish are shot in handheld, completely biased against this way of filming. They wanted cranes and tracks, and so a lot of their films have a very commercial veneer, you know. Then there's also production design. You know, if someone's just walked through the rain and mud, then we want that to look authentic, you know. Or if they're a bum on the street, we want them to have clothes that look like a bum on the street would have, which is a little tattered and worn and dirty, right? I mean, that's the reality. Whereas in their production design, everything's extraordinarily clean, like it came off the rack. There's no authenticity there as well. So there are these kinds of unexpected, I would say, hurdles while filmmaking. Even as far as the schedule of when you shoot a film, you know, here it's in the West, it's in all the world, I think, except China, it's, you know, you rehearse the actors, then you do lighting while the actors go back and change and do their makeup, and on set you then do the lighting, then they come back and then you shoot. Versus over there, they do the makeup and wardrobe, they come on to the set, then they rehearse, and then they sit on the side with their makeup dripping, getting hot in their wardrobe while they set up the lighting. Do you see what I mean? So it's this kind of stuff, like even the details like this of workflow, are very, you know, I mean, also directors don't talk to their actors. It's the AD's job in China.
Okay.
So over my dead body, my AD is the only one talking to my actors.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, it was like dumbfound. It was really shocking. It was really shocking.
That's very interesting. Is there any kind of other filmmaking kind of techniques or anything that you picked up in China that maybe that you'll use in the future? Otherwise, kind of aside from the kind of technical difficulties and challenges, there other parts you can kind of take to your filmmaking in the future?
You know, I had a mentor who's a Chinese filmmaker in China, who's an who's a very well-known, established art filmmaker in China. They call them art filmmakers. We call them indie filmmakers. Their name is art director, art films. And he was very helpful as far as when he reviewed the screenplay and how to make it finer, make it more, you know, he did suggest I go out and research X, Y, and Z. And he was working in a way, and his films go to all the top Western film festivals, San Sebastian, all these places. So I know that there are a handful of filmmakers that work at a different level, but there are such a tiny, it's not like the standard or you know, it's actually an exception, and there's a group of them. And you know, I didn't work with his team. I didn't work with his product, even though I very much was hoping I'd get bits and pieces from his team. I didn't get a chance to, so I bet they work at a different level than the majority of films made in China. So I can only speak from my own experience. I'm sure if I had been in that environment, there would have been something I could have picked up on. But do you know what I mean? But I'm not speaking, this is also not a blanket statement, although everyone I speak to in China, this is the normal, this is the standard. This is kind of the standard that I'm talking about, but it's definitely not, there are exceptions to the rule. And I'm sure that the better films that make it to the West, because they're working in a more organic way, not in this kind of commercial glossy way, they would have been a different experience.
Yeah, that's understandable. I guess kind of speaking to that as well, do you have maybe some advice for aspiring filmmakers or directors, or you can kind of speak to all of kind of the levels of producer, writer, in making kind of their first feature film?
Yeah, you have to, well, there are a couple of points. The first is that, you have to be so deeply passionate and in love with your script. like in love, you know. I would dream about it. I would wake up thinking about it. I'd go to sleep thinking about it. You kind of have to be obsessed. And if you don't, you know, for the first one in particular, unless you're being, you know, you have a special circumstance and someone commissions you to go make a film, it's a different situation, but most of us don't have that. So because you have to fight so hard for your project and for such a long time, that it can't be something that bores you or that you'll tire of or get sick of or maybe change your mind about later. If that happens, then you won't make it, then you'll stop. So you need something that will fuel this energy to make it through such a long struggle, basically. And yeah, and the second thing is to, you know, a lot of people will tell you that you can't do it, that you shouldn't do it, that it's hard to do, don't do it. So, you know, but you just have to tune that out and stick to your own conviction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be probably the second point.
Okay. Yeah, totally. In terms of kind of the release plan for this film, do you have more festivals that you'll be attending, or looking to distribute on a certain platform, or is that kind of still left in the cards to be decided?
The next festival is Beloit, which is, there's a screening on the 16th of this month, and then there's the actual festival, the proper festival in February. I believe it's in February, January, February. So that's the next one coming up. It still has a few more months for the festival run, maybe half a year or so. And the distribution is just now in the works. So stay tuned for that.
Sounds good. So we're kind of coming up to our time here. Is there anything else you feel like sharing about the film, the experience, or anything else about other cast members or anything like that? No. I feel very grateful and fortunate to have been able to make this film. I think the atmosphere now between the US and China is making it more and more difficult for, you know, I hope it will change in the future, but I would not have been able to make this film, you know, a second after I made it. It was just the end of the sort of the golden age of this. There was this bubble for also filmmaking in China where films were being made left and right. And that has gone down drastically, and censorship has gone up, and US-China relations have gotten tense. And so I'm extremely grateful that this is, I don't know that I'd be able to make a film like that ever again in China. It was sort of the last moment. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. How can we kind of stay in touch with you in terms of kind of social media links or anything like that? Do you have?
Yeah, on Instagram, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to remember the handles now, because they're all so similar and just slightly different.
We can post them
It's,
below as well.
yeah, Touch Film or Touch Movie, and then, because it's almost the same on Twitter. There's Instagram handle, there's a Twitter account and a Facebook account.
Okay.
So you can definitely find us there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we wish you all the best and hope to see you again over the course of the fest. And thank you to our audience as well for joining us for the Q&A for Touch.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you. Thanks for watching.
All right.